There's one thing, just one, that we were told not to bring into our prayers. Not because it's unimportant, not because God doesn't care, but because it misses the entire point of prayer itself. It's the thing most people start their prayers with. It's the thing that weighs us down, wakes us up at night, and hijacks our thoughts during the day. And yet, it's the one thing heaven said, don't pray about this the way the world does. Why? Because what you don't pray about reveals what you truly believe about God. In a world obsessed with needs, outcomes, and survival, this message cuts through the noise. It's not about eloquence. It's not about length. It's not even about asking for more. It's about realignment. The real power in prayer is not found in how loudly you ask, but in how deeply you trust. If this message reaches you, it's because you're being called to a higher level of communion, one where prayer becomes less about panic and more about peace. The breakthrough isn't in what you pray, it's in why you don't have to. We live in a time when prayer has become a checklist, a long list of requests, a rush of words spoken into the air, hoping that somehow, somewhere God is listening. But the truth is, He already knows. Before a single word leaves your lips, before your thoughts form into sentences, He knows what burdens your heart. And not only does He know, but He deeply cares. In the Bible, we are told that our Father in heaven knows what we need even before we ask Him. That means the purpose of prayer was never to inform God. He is not unaware. He is not distant. He is not waiting for you to convince Him of your needs. Real prayer is about alignment, not information. It's not about presenting a case to a divine judge. It's about drawing close to the one who already sees, already understands, already provides. So many are worn out from trying to say the right words, make the right confession, repeat the same line over and over again, hoping it will finally move heaven. But prayer was never meant to be a performance. It's not a transaction. It's a connection. When you approach God with the mindset that you must make Him see, you've already missed the truth of who He is. In the Bible, we are said to cast our anxieties on Him because He cares for us. Not because He doesn't already know, but because we need to let go. The letting go is what heals us. The trust is what opens the door. People spend hours asking for provision, for healing, for breakthrough. And yes, those are real needs. But God's desire is not just to grant your request, it's to grow your faith. And faith grows in the soil of surrender. When you believe that He already knows, your prayers stop being a plea and become a declaration. You stop begging and start believing. You stop worrying and start resting. That is powerful Christian living. That is real spiritual maturity. If you're praying like God has forgotten you, you will live like you're forgotten. But when you know He sees, He hears, and He already knows, your prayer life changes. It becomes worship. It becomes gratitude. It becomes alignment with heaven's will. You no longer fight for blessings, you walk in them. In the Bible, we are said to seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be added to you. That means God is not ignoring your needs. He's prioritizing your heart. You are never unseen. You are never unheard. The Father who feeds the sparrows and clothes the lilies has not overlooked your situation. He's not waiting for you to beg harder. He's waiting for you to trust deeper. This is the essence of prayer. Not panic, not pressure, but peace. And peace only comes when you know that your needs are already known in heaven. There is a quiet tragedy unfolding in the spiritual life of many believers today. Prayer, what was meant to be the most intimate conversation with God, has been turned into a stage performance. It's become scripted, rehearsed, repeated. Many are more concerned with how they sound when they pray than what's truly happening in their hearts. But true prayer was never meant to impress others or follow a formula. It was never supposed to be a show. It was always about sincerity over ceremony, relationship over ritual. In the Bible, we are said not to pray like the hypocrites who love to stand and be seen. That kind of prayer may echo through buildings, but it doesn't move the heart of God, because God listens to the cry of the heart, not the craft of the words. It's not the volume or vocabulary of your prayer that heaven responds to. It's the honesty behind it. You don't need to convince God with poetic phrases. You don't need to sound spiritual. You just need to be real. Real prayer has power because it comes from a place of truth, not performance. In today's culture, even spiritual things are filtered. We've learned how to sound deep, look holy, and speak in a way that garners attention. But when you strip all of that away, what remains? When it's just you and God, no lights, no audience, no performance, what do you say then? That's the place God wants to meet you. That's the altar He listens to, the quiet, unseen place where you aren't trying to earn approval, but simply express trust. Many have made the mistake of thinking that prayer is about saying the right things, using the right words, or praying long enough to sound committed. But in the Bible, we are said not to babble on like the pagans, thinking that many words will make us heard. That is not what touches the throne. You see, in heaven's courtroom, the language of prayer is humility. The posture of prayer is surrender. The power of prayer is not in your performance, it's in your dependence. You were never called to entertain heaven. You were called to commune with God. And there's a difference. One seeks applause. The other seeks intimacy. One is rooted in pride. The other is rooted in surrender. When prayer becomes performance, the heart becomes distant. You say all the right things, but nothing moves. You sound strong, but feel weak. You're loud, but heaven is silent. Why? Because God doesn't respond to actors. He responds to children. He responds to the broken, to the honest, to the ones who come not with a script, but with scars. That's why some of the most powerful prayers in the Bible were short, desperate, and raw. A man cried out, "Lord, have mercy on me," and heaven moved. Another said, "I believe, help my unbelief." These weren't speeches. They were soul cries, and they got God's attention because they were real, and real always reaches Him. If you find yourself trying to sound holy when you pray, stop. If you're trying to impress people around you in a group setting, stop. If your prayers are full of filler words and long religious sentences, but no real connection, stop. You don't need to perform for a Father who already knows you. You don't need to act when you're speaking to the one who sees every thought, every wound, every hidden corner of your life. The world may reward performance, but heaven honors honesty. The world may applaud your words, but God looks at your heart. That's why Jesus warned against praying in public just to be seen, not because public prayer is wrong, but because the motive behind it can become corrupted. If the purpose of your prayer is to be noticed, you've already received your reward. But if the purpose is to connect with the Father, your reward will come in secret, peace, power, and presence. There's a reason why the quiet, hidden prayers of saints have shaped history. They weren't famous. They weren't eloquent. But they were pure. They were intimate. They were real. When you strip away the performance, prayer becomes alive again. It becomes the lifeline it was meant to be. It becomes breath. You don't think about breathing. You just do it. And that's how prayer should be. Natural, constant, real, holy. So many are spiritually exhausted because they're putting on a show even in prayer. But God is not looking for actors. He's looking for worshipers in spirit and truth. In the Bible, we are said to enter His presence with boldness. Not because we've rehearsed, but because we've been redeemed. Your confidence in prayer doesn't come from how good you sound. It comes from knowing who you're speaking to and who you are to Him. You are His. And because you are His, you don't have to pretend. You don't have to perform. You don't have to polish your prayers. You just have to come broken, come silent, come angry, come tired. Just come. The most powerful Christian prayers are often the ones no one else hears, the ones spoken in the dark, the ones whispered through tears, the ones that don't need explanation because heaven already understands the language of your soul. The next time you pray, remember you're not auditioning. You're entering a sacred place, a holy connection, a moment with the one who knows, who hears, and who longs to meet with you. Not the version of you you've rehearsed, but the real you. Faith is not built by how many times you repeat a prayer. It's not strengthened by the number of hours you spend asking for the same thing over and over again. Real faith grows through trust, not through repetition, not through performance, not through formula. It grows when you learn to place your confidence in the one who holds your future, even when you don't understand what He's doing right now. So many people believe that the more they repeat their prayer, the more likely they are to get what they want. They think persistence in words is what moves God. But faith doesn't come from how long you've been praying. It comes from how deeply you trust even when the answer hasn't come. In the Bible, we are said to walk by faith, not by sight. That means you trust even when you can't see the outcome. You believe even when you feel nothing. You remain confident not because the situation looks good, but because you know the one who is good. Repetition can sometimes be a mask for fear. We keep repeating ourselves in prayer, not because we trust, but because we're anxious. We're afraid that if we don't say it enough times, it won't happen. That's not faith. That's spiritual insecurity. And insecurity is the enemy of intimacy. It's like a child repeating, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Are you sure?" every few minutes. The parent hasn't stopped loving. The child has just stopped trusting. And when you live like that with God, you will wear yourself out spiritually. God is not impressed by how often you say something. He's moved when you believe what he already said. In the Bible, we are said that without faith, it is impossible to please him. That's not about your religious habits. That's about your heart. A heart that trusts, a heart that rests, a heart that believes God is faithful even in silence. Repetition alone doesn't produce faith, but trust always invites deeper revelation. Think about Abraham. He was promised a son, and he waited years without repeating the promise to God every single day. He trusted, he walked. He believed, and it was counted to him as righteousness. That's faith. Not desperate, endless pleading, but quiet, confident trust. The kind of trust that says, even if I don't see it today, I know he's still working. The kind of trust that stops repeating the request and starts preparing for the answer. If you keep asking for the same thing over and over again, ask yourself, is it faith or is it fear? Is your prayer rooted in belief or is it driven by anxiety? Because real Christian prayer is not about begging, it's about believing. You can say it once and trust God to handle the rest. That's spiritual maturity. That's what it means to grow in your walk with God. You pray and then you walk away in peace, not panic. You surrender the need to control the timeline or manipulate the outcome. Faith requires letting go of control, letting go of your need to understand everything, letting go of your doubts, your fears, and your fallback plans. You either believe that God is who he says he is, or you don't. You either believe that he will supply all your needs, or you think you need to keep reminding him. In the Bible, we are said that those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, unshakable, unmovable. That's not someone who prays in circles every day. That's someone who prays and then rests. Spiritual growth happens not when you get louder with God, but when you get quieter within yourself, when you stop striving and start surrendering, when you stop saying, Lord, do you hear me? And start declaring, Lord, I trust you. This is the shift that separates surface-level religion from deep-rooted faith. Faith doesn't scream in fear, it stands in peace. Faith doesn't demand proof, it rests in promises. That's why in the Bible, we are said that when we ask, we must believe and not doubt, because doubt cancels the power of prayer. You cannot repeat your way into a miracle. You cannot beg your way into breakthrough. You must believe. You must stand. You must trust that the God who hears you once does not need to be convinced 1,000 times. He's not deaf. He's not forgetful. He's faithful. And yet so many are trapped in a cycle of spiritual repetition, saying the same prayers over and over again, not out of faith, but out of fear that God isn't listening. But the truth is, he hears you the first time. What he's waiting for is not another repetition, but real trust. He's not looking for louder voices. He's looking for stronger hearts. Hearts that say, even if the answer takes time, I won't panic. I'll prepare. I'll trust. I'll walk in obedience while I wait. That's where real growth happens. That's where faith becomes more than a word. It becomes a way of life. Trust transforms prayer from a desperate cry into a confident conversation. And that confidence carries you through the storm, through the silence, through the waiting. Because you know the one you're trusting. You know he's never failed you, and you know he never will. We live in a world that teaches us to grab the steering wheel of life and never let go. Take charge. Control the outcome. Hustle, push. Force it if you have to. But real prayer doesn't operate in that spirit. Real prayer isn't about taking control. It's about giving it up. Surrender is the doorway to power in the spiritual life. You don't pray to bend God's will to yours. You pray to bring your heart into alignment with his. That's where transformation begins. When most people pray, they have a plan, a list, a strategy they want God to bless. They come to him not for direction, but for approval. They say, God, here's what I want, please make it happen. But in the Bible, we are said to submit our ways to the Lord, and he will direct our path. That means surrender comes before clarity. Release comes before revelation. You have to let go of your grip before God will place something new in your hands. The truth is, many people pray but never truly surrender. They say, thy will be done, with their lips, but in their heart, they're still wrestling with fear, still trying to micromanage the details, still bargaining with God, still anxious that if they don't say the right words or do the right things, he won't come through. But that's not prayer. That's anxiety disguised as devotion. And anxiety never moves heaven. Trust does. Surrender is the hardest part of the Christian walk because it requires faith without full understanding. It demands that you lay down the illusion of control and believe that God's way, though unknown, is better than your own. In the Bible, we are said that God's thoughts are higher than our thoughts, his ways higher than ours. That means even when you don't see the full picture, you trust the one who painted it. So why do we struggle to surrender in prayer? Because we're afraid. Afraid that if we give it to God, He won't do what we want. Afraid that His timeline will be longer, that His method will be harder, that His answer might be no. But real faith doesn't say, God, do it my way. Real faith says, God, do it your way, even if it costs me something. That's the kind of prayer that shakes heaven, not the prayer of control, but the prayer of complete release. You see, surrender isn't weakness, it's power. It's not defeat, it's freedom. When you finally let go of your plans, your expectations, your deadlines, and your desires, you make room for God to do something greater than you imagined. In the Bible, we are said that eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it entered the heart of man what God has prepared for those who love Him. That means His plan is better. Always, even when it doesn't look like it, control leads to stress. Surrender leads to peace. Control leads to exhaustion. Surrender leads to rest. And yet, so many are still clinging to control, desperately trying to pray it into existence by sheer willpower. But the most powerful prayer you can pray is often the simplest one. Lord, I trust you. Even here, even now, even when nothing makes sense. When Jesus Himself knelt in the garden, facing betrayal and crucifixion, His prayer was not a demand, it was surrender. Not my will, but yours be done. That's the model. That's the standard. Even when pain is ahead, even when obedience is costly. Surrender is not passive. It's the most courageous thing you can do. It's saying, God, I don't need to understand. I just need to obey. If you only pray when you feel in control, you're missing the point. Real prayer happens when you've run out of options, when you've come to the end of yourself, when there's no plan B. That's when you learn what surrender really means. It means choosing to trust God when there's no guarantee, only His word. It means opening your hands and saying, whatever you want, I want. Whatever you ask, I'll do. Whatever you choose, I'll follow. There's a strange peace that comes when you stop trying to manipulate your circumstances and start trusting God with them. Prayer stops being a fight and starts being a flow. You stop pushing and start receiving. You stop demanding and start listening. And in that listening, you begin to hear what God has been trying to say all along. My child, I've got you. Let me lead. In the Bible, we are said to be still and know that He is God. Stillness is not inactivity, it's surrender in motion. It's the posture of a heart that's done striving and ready to trust. If you want to grow in your prayer life, stop asking for control and start asking for closeness. Draw near to God, not so He can change your circumstances, but so He can change you. Because when your heart is surrendered, it doesn't matter what the answer is. You've already won. The victory is in the surrender. The peace is in the letting go. The miracle is often hidden in the willingness to release. So today, ask yourself, am I praying to control the outcome, or am I praying to submit to His will? The answer will determine whether your prayer life is driven by fear or fueled by faith. Before you ever open your mouth, before you even think of the words to say, God already knows what you need. He knows your fears. He sees your battles. He understands your silent cries, and yet He still invites you to pray, not because He needs the information, but because He wants the intimacy. Prayer was never about informing God. It's always been about connecting with Him. In the Bible, we are said that our Father knows what we need even before we ask Him. That means prayer is not a transaction. It's not a spiritual shopping list. It's a sacred conversation. The real power of prayer isn't in what we say. It's in who we speak to. And the one we speak to is not distant. He is near, He is present, He is personal. Many people treat prayer like a spiritual vending machine. You insert the right phrases, hit the right buttons, and hope the result drops into your life. But that's not what God wants. He's not looking for perfect phrases. He's looking for an open heart. He's looking for sons and daughters who want to know Him, not just use Him. Prayer is not a ritual. It's a relationship. The same way a child doesn't need the perfect words to speak to their father, you don't need the perfect formula to speak to your God. He's not judging your grammar. He's not analyzing your structure. He's listening to your heart. In the Bible, we are said that the Spirit helps us in our weakness, even when we don't know what to pray for. That's the kind of relationship you have with your Heavenly Father, a bond so close that even silence can become a prayer when your heart is turned toward Him. So many of us get caught up in doing prayer right that we forget why we're praying in the first place. The goal is not to sound spiritual. The goal is to become surrendered. The goal is not to be heard by others, but to connect with the one who already knows the deepest corners of your soul. The goal is relationship, because God doesn't want a performance. He wants proximity. You don't have to pray long to pray strong. Some of the most powerful prayers in history were short, broken, and whispered in weakness. Lord, help me. God, I can't do this alone. Jesus, have mercy on me. These are the cries that move heaven. These are the prayers that reach the throne not because they're polished, but because they're honest. In the Bible, we are said that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those crushed in spirit. That means when your heart is shattered, your words don't have to be perfect. They just have to be real. And yet, we often come to prayer trying to impress God, not knowing that we're already fully known and deeply loved. We try to convince Him to care, not realizing He cared before we even asked. The cross proves that. The resurrection proves that. The fact that you woke up this morning with breath in your lungs proves that. He has always been for you. Prayer simply brings you back into that awareness. You see, God doesn't need your updates. He needs your attention. He doesn't need your reports. He wants your relationship. He wants you to sit with Him, to talk with Him, to rest in Him. Prayer is not a way to manipulate God. It's a way to be molded by Him. You don't come to God to change His mind. You come to God so He can change your heart. Intimacy with God doesn't come from distance. It comes from daily conversation, from learning to include Him in everything, from inviting Him into the ordinary moments of your life. When you stop praying just to get answers and start praying to get closer to His heart, your life begins to shift. The pressure to perform fades away. The anxiety about results diminishes, and you begin to experience peace that surpasses understanding. In the Bible, we are said to pray without ceasing, not because God needs more updates, but because He desires constant fellowship, like a friend who never leaves your side, like a father who walks with you through every season, like a Savior who longs for more than your words. He wants your presence. When you begin to understand that prayer is about relationship, everything changes. You stop begging and start trusting. You stop repeating and start resting. You stop doubting and start drawing near. Your prayers no longer come from a place of desperation, but from a place of confidence. Because you know who you're speaking to. You know you're not just talking into the air. You're speaking to the God who formed the stars and still knows your name. And when you begin to walk in that kind of closeness with God, your desires begin to shift. You don't just ask for what you want. You begin to want what He wants. Your prayers become aligned with heaven, and heaven begins to move through your surrendered life. That's not religion. That's relationship. The most powerful thing you can ever learn in your prayer life is this: God already knows. So stop striving. Start surrendering. Start showing up in prayer not to impress, but to connect. Start talking to Him like you would to a trusted friend. Start listening for His voice in the silence. Start trusting that even when nothing seems to change around you, something is changing within you. Because prayer isn't just about changing your situation. It's about changing you. And the more time you spend with God, the more you begin to reflect His heart, His peace, His patience, and His love. This is what prayer was always meant to be: not pressure, but presence; not performance, but relationship.